Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but sometimes a police report does the real damage. Today on rSpace, what happens when you try to flee the scene and the evidence won't let you? Found out my wife was cheating through a police report. I went on a mission to destroy her life. I feel like I've lived a relatively uneventful life. I thought that marriage would bring me more peace, but I didn't expect it to be the aspect of my life that brought complications and drama, especially because the woman I married didn't seem to be the problematic kind in any way. We met when we were both in university, and she was studying life sciences, so she was intelligent and very focused on her studies. She didn't go to parties, she had only been in one relationship before I met her, and she was very emotionally intelligent. If you saw all of that the same way I had, I'm sure you wouldn't have expected things to go very wrong, but they did. It's been 12 years since we met and 8 years since we got married, and I think that we managed to have an uncomplicated relationship for the most of it. Even at the point where she had to move to another city for work and I chose to relocate with her, we decided to be logical and not emotional about uprooting our lives. We left a lot behind, but we made it as uncomplicated as we could. I've always been thankful for having her in my life since she always made life easier, so I really hate how much she has subverted that with one act. I found out that she has been cheating on me, and I only found out from pure luck. We moved into our current city 2 years ago, so we already had roots well established where we were before, but the opportunity that she came across was too good for her to say no to, so we left behind everyone and started over in a new spot. She was quick to make friends, though I struggled a bit. However, eventually I got 1 or 2 people I could really trust in my circle. She became friendly with a coworker named Jeff, and he was a really cool guy. I had seen them interact a few times and it seemed entirely platonic to me. He also worked with her, so it was natural to me that they'd eventually have a certain rapport. I didn't feel threatened by it, and I felt no need to quash it, especially because it wasn't like he was her absolute best friend. The city we previously lived in was a lot easier for people who liked cycling and taking public transit, so that was what my wife used to depend on. She could drive, but she barely did back then. When we moved to our new location, we found that it was a lot better suited for driving, so she started to drive herself to work only a few months ago, because she realized it wasn't sustainable for her to continue to struggle to commute when she could just get a car instead. I knew a lot of guys would be familiar with this feeling, but I really wasn't a fan of her driving skills. She could easily go to the mall and get back home safely, but there was so much she didn't know about cars, and there were too many instances when she'd return and tell me that she almost hit something and that a curb came out of nowhere. I know the girls find those kinds of things cute, but my goodness, after a point it just seemed like ineptitude behind the wheel. I never chose to let her know the way I truly felt, and instead I just tried my best to re-educate her. Women being quirky about accidents will never sit well with me because people can die on the road. Despite all my attempts at trying to get her to drive better, I can't say that I noticed a major difference. It felt like it was just a matter of time before she got into an accident, and my only hope was that if she did, it wouldn't be serious. It didn't take long for that accident to actually happen. She called me in tears, and as much as I wanted to be pissed, I had to make sure that she was fine first. She said she was fine and she'd be checked out by paramedics on the spot, but it had apparently been bad enough for airbags to deploy, and that worried me. I said I was going to head over there right away, but she kept saying it was fine and I could just meet her at the hospital instead. She told me she'd let me know which hospital when she got there, but it took almost a full hour before she called me back, which just didn't seem right. It didn't seem like the ambulance would hang around with a potentially injured person for that long. Anyway, when I got to the hospital, she didn't seem to be in really bad shape, which I was thankful for. She said the car was likely totaled, but I didn't care about that since we had insurance. I was almost certain the accident was her fault though, because she said that the damage was on the front end, and in most cases when you rear-end someone that fast, you were either inattentive or moving too fast, and you got brake checked. I doubted it was the second. She got discharged from the hospital in a few hours, and we went back home. I made sure to take care of her for the next 2 days, until she claimed that she was perfectly fine and fit to go to work. I told her that I'd handle the insurance claim, and she didn't need to worry her head about all of that. Looking back, there were a few things that didn't seem entirely right. One was the fact that the accident had happened when she should have been in the office, and the other was that she really didn't want me to come to the accident site. Those things did occur to me back then, but I didn't dwell on them because her well-being was a lot more important, and I was sure that there was a reasonable explanation to the whole situation. Things really fell apart when I went to get to the police report for insurance claims. That was the point where a lot of things that she had chosen not to tell me came to light. I don't think she realized what the police report was going to say because she had given me permission to pick it up, and when I did, I was sure I had read through it. That was when I saw that the officer who had gotten to the scene of the accident saw. Yes, the accident was her fault. She hadn't stopped in time and ended up rear-ending the person in front of her. She wasn't speeding, but it seems she wasn't paying attention, and she ended up hitting fast enough to deploy the airbags. However, the part that she hadn't mentioned to me at any point was that there had been someone with her in the car. The officer mentioned that my wife and the passenger seemed to only have minor injuries. The passenger was identified as Jeff, which didn't really surprise me. What made it weird was that he was apparently rather eager to leave the scene, and he didn't want any medical attention, since he wasn't the driver and he didn't seem to be seriously injured. The officer let him leave, but he was identified before he did, and that showed in the report. The rest of the report didn't mean much to me because it was standard fare, but at that point, I was less concerned about the accident and why my wife had chosen not to tell me that Jeff had been in the car at the time of the accident. I knew they were friendly with each other, so that wouldn't have been an instant red flag because they could have been coming from lunch together or something. I think she didn't mention it because there were enough hints for me to know that something was off. That wasn't the time that they should have been out of the office, and she knew I was smart enough not to ignore that, so she bared the fact that he was there entirely. I knew there had to have been something going on for her to not even give me a whiff of the fact that she was with him. However, it seemed like she hadn't anticipated that the police report would be so detailed, or she simply hadn't thought that deeply when I said I'd handle the insurance claim. I finished up with the claim, but at this point, I need some advice to figure out what might be going on. I'm going to confront her regardless, but I'd love to know what you all think of the situation before I do, in case there's some advice that will help me navigate this situation a lot better. At this point, you're probably already piecing it together. The fact that Jeff was so eager to bail from the accident, that's a nice neon sign, flashing something's not right here. And that to her secrecy and the sudden perfect timing of the accident, it's hard to convince yourself this was just bad luck. Getting caught like this? Maybe it was the universe's way of finally showing you the truth. She's not just careless, she's been hiding her choices from you, and now the curtain's pulled back. Update 1. I was here about 2 weeks ago. I wrote the post about my wife who got into an accident. I found out through the police report that there had been a passenger in the car and she hadn't mentioned a single thing about the person. That was odd to me because I knew the person she was in the car with, so it felt like she shouldn't have been keeping a secret. However, the fact that she chose to keep that major detail from me felt very intentional, and after I found out, I told myself that I was going to confront her. I've done that now and her response wasn't good enough, which led me to take things into my own hands. It was the same night that I found out, after submitting all the necessary documents for the insurance claim, that I asked her to sit down and talk with me. I started off by asking her if there was any detail about the accident that she hadn't told me. She asked, "Like what?" And I told her anything major that she had admitted. Like, was I drinking or something? I wasn't. I couldn't tell if she was playing stupid or if she felt that there was absolutely no way I knew that Jeff had been in the car with her. Because her approach was annoying me, I told her that I was referring to a passenger being in the car with her. I let her know that the police report had indicated that there was. I added that because I didn't want her to try and deny it. She was definitely taken aback by that, but she was silent long enough for me to know that there had definitely been a passenger with her. She finally acted like she remembered and said, "Oh yeah, Jeff was there." I asked why she hadn't told me that in all of this time, and she claimed that it had slipped her mind, because he had left the scene a lot quicker than she did. I told her that I was very concerned that her good friend and coworker had abandoned her at the scene of the accident. Where were they going that he couldn't even wait around to make sure that she was okay? She didn't say anything to that. Then I asked why she was out at that time. It wasn't lunchtime and it wasn't after work, so it was hard to understand why they had both been out of work and driving around the city. I think she realized that it was turning into an interrogation. I'm sure the truth was something she absolutely couldn't admit to me, so she lied. I didn't even need to try to confirm it because I'm sure that it was a lie. It was far from a good lie, too. She said that Jeff had remembered that someone close to him was about to travel far away for a while, so he had rushed to get a present, and she had driven him. Their workplace was not chill enough for them to both vanish in the middle of the day, so I didn't believe that. They bought the present and were on their way back when they had an accident. He wasn't hurt, and she only had scratches, so she told him to hurry on and deliver the gift since they had to return to work as soon as possible. If I were stupider, I might have believed that story, but it was just too convenient, and it didn't explain why she hid the fact that he was there. I still acted like she won me over with that though, because if I straight up aired my suspicions and asked her if she was cheating, I wouldn't get the real answer from her, and I'd likely lose any chance of seeing the truth before she deleted it. So I took her word and moved on from it. By the next day, we were interacting like things were normal again. However, I knew my suspicions were still very strong, and I was going to make sure that I figured out what was going on. So the first chance that I got, I grabbed her MacBook and opened iMessage to see what the conversation with Jeff were like. I wasn't too surprised to see that they looked very sanitized. I was sure that either after I had confronted her or as a regular rule, she had deleted any messages with him that were off. I had seen their banter in person, so the chat was way too clean for me to be convinced by. Fortunately for me, she was signed into her Facebook, so I checked Messenger. I noticed that things were a little more flirty there, but as far as I read, there was nothing that I could use to crucify her. It was on a whim that I decided to check her email, and that's where I found her making plans with his email. There was nothing off there, but there were emails at times, dates, and locations, and one of the dates was the date that she had the accident. I didn't need to develop some kind of conspiracy to know that the dates were likely referring to where they'd meet up for their affairs. Most of them weren't hotels, including the most recent one, which led me to believe that sometimes they went there in the same vehicle, but she, or he, would pick up the other one. I just needed to make sure that I could intercept the next time they met up, because that would be the only way I could get evidence that she couldn't deny. And at that point, I knew for a fact that she was having an affair. I needed something to make me know that I wasn't crazy, since all the signs were pointing to one thing. I tried to sign into her Gmail, but the passwords I knew weren't working. I knew I'd have to check her email on an almost daily basis to catch her, but thankfully, the next email came less than a week after that. I noted the details and hired a PI because it was too risky if I tried to do the tracking myself. I gave the PI everything I knew about her movement this day, and as much as I knew about Jeff. He told me that he'd make sure to keep an eye on her from the time she left the house to the time she came back, and true to his word, I saw his car parked across the street the next morning. He was very inconspicuous. It was torture waiting until the end of the next day, but when she walked in the door, I knew that I was going to hear something from the PI soon. However, he just said that we should meet up at his office the next day instead of him sending me anything. However, he helped my anxiety by telling me that my gut was right. That was all I needed to know, and my mood tanked immediately because I realized that the woman I had married was cheating on me with her male friend. If I had been that kind of guy who forbade her from having a friend of the opposite sex, I would have been controlling and insecure. Now look what has happened. I've certainly learned my lesson from this for future relationships. The next day, I went to see the PI, and he confirmed that she met up with Jeff at the stated location and time, and they went in his car to a hotel. The PI said he had found out that they showed up at the hotel 3 to 4 times a month, according to one of the employees that they had been going there for at least 6 months. I felt like I was going to lose my mind hearing that. The best case scenario would have been for me to learn that they hadn't slept together more than once, but no, it was a long-standing affair. He gave me pictures of the two of them meeting up, as well as pictures of them entering the hotel. He also got pictures of them holding hands when they exited. Everything was time-stamped, and they spent 2 hours in the hotel. I was wondering how they were doing all of that on company time, and I'm definitely going to follow up on this as my own side quest. As soon as I could, I confronted my wife. I told her that I knew for a fact that she was sleeping with Jeff, and she had been for a long time. She looked shocked and started to shake her head, but I didn't give her any chance. I told her that I knew that they went to a hotel that very day, and I knew that they had been going for one of their trysts when she had the accident, which was why she had conveniently forgotten to tell me he was in the car that day. I dared her to continue to lie to me because I wasn't afraid to show her how pissed I was. I've never hit her or any woman before, but honestly, if she had lied to me then, I can't guarantee I wouldn't have flown into a rage. She managed to squeak out that it wasn't supposed to last that long. She said it was just a little excitement and that she knew it wasn't right, as if it was supposed to help. She told me that it was never as good as with me, but the stupidity chased the excitement of doing the wrong thing. She got on her knees and said that it was a horrible mistake that she had made. She kept saying that she was sorry, but she was really only sorry that I caught her in the act, because it would have been a regular night for her, despite the fact that she had just slept with him that night. I told her that there was nothing else to say for our relationship. She had been sleeping with him for a very long time, and we were going to get a divorce. I advised her to pack her things and go to crash with him, since he was single. I don't have an affair partner to go and sleep with, so I wasn't going to leave the house. I made it clear that I didn't want it to repeat myself on that, and that she needed to be out in 15 minutes. She was out in 15 minutes because she had never seen me that serious before. I had served her with divorce papers at work. I don't know if she actually went to live with Jeff. If she did, it was extra pathetic, but I actually didn't care. I resent her, and that helps me resent her more if she did. I should hopefully have the final update soon, when the divorce process is over. Update 2. I'm a single man again, and that makes me immensely happy. I never thought that my divorce would be something that'd bring me joy because I always imagined myself fighting for the marriage, but not this time. It's easy to see that the things you believe in change when you get confronted with a cheating partner. I wanted to confront Jeff, but I decided that it really wasn't worth it. He knew she was married and still decided to sleep with her because it was exciting or because he was horny. He wasn't worth my time, and as you'll find out, I was still able to get at him without even intending. The divorce itself wasn't too complicated. Her lawyer wanted to squeeze me dry, but my lawyer made a very good point of saying that she was well employed and had chosen to cheat, so there was no reason for me to reward her with any kind of financial gift for that. I waived my right to a split from a potential insurance check from her car accident. I was going to stay living in the house we had rented, simply because I was more capable of affording it on my single income. I also refused to watch her defile the house by moving it with Jeff. Ultimately, I gave her nothing, and that worked for me. I wanted to hurt her really bad, though, so the next thing I did was contact her company and her boss to let him know that the two of their employees had been having a tryst on company time. Not only were workplace relationships frowned upon, but from the timestamp of the day she had the accident and the day that I had pictures of her at the hotel, I was able to get her boss to realize that during certain workplace assignments, they had been carving out time for themselves. Of course, that didn't go down well. Her boss was very reasonable, and since he was divorced himself, he didn't exactly mind taking my side in an entire thing. Both my ex and Jeff were fired. She knew that I had to have been the one behind her boss suddenly finding out, and she came to the house in a rage. I did my best to incite her by acting as unbothered as possible, and that set her off even further. I told her to leave or I'd call the police, and she dared me to do it. It was only when I started dialing 911 that she stormed off, but not before throwing a small potted plant through a window. That was funny to me because I knew the security camera caught everything. My next line of action was to take the pictures of her meeting with Jeff, and then the security video, and share it with everyone close to both of us, letting them know exactly what she had gotten up to. Needless to say, the reactions to such hot gossip were intense. Her parents were disappointed in her, her close friends tried to take her side, but our mutual friends were shocked. It was actually a mess. Surprisingly, she didn't come to the house and scream and shout, but my car got keyed at work. I had clearly hit a soft spot. I shared the security footage from work, someone with a hoodie, and the one from the house with a police report, and I'm going to make sure I ruin her life in every way that I can. You might think that this is excessive, but to me, it's just a little bit of pain I felt watching my life fall apart. I think she'll have a good time seeing the same happen to her life. There's something about seeing people caught in the act that just makes them squirm and completely unable to deny anything. Bravo, OP. The fallout? Perfect. Jobs lost, friends finding the truth. Her social circle shocked. Honestly, it's hard to feel sorry for someone who spends months betraying someone they supposedly love, and then acts like you're the problem when the truth comes out. Have you ever found out your partner was cheating in a way that completely blew your mind? Like through a police report, a receipt, or something you weren't supposed to see? Share your stories with us below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.